Under branch and over stone did the boy try to run as far away from the predator behind him that was hot on his heels, and it was coming in fast. Alpha Raptor was its name, a creature from a new dungeon he recently gained access. Enemy was slightly taller than himself, but also vicious, fast, stealthy, and had a powerful sense of smell. Worst of all, they were highly intelligent too, compared to most dungeon monsters he faced. Naruto was fast, faster still with Hyagak, but these things had 5 levels on him, and their perks and powerful legs enabled them to run at frightening speeds. Fortunately, Naruto was able to deal with the grunts of the group with some well-placed ninjutsu. But then the last dying member triggered a move that summoned the local alpha. The enemy was larger, faster, stronger. Worse yet, it could call its own reinforcements, too. "Shala!" the leader of the pack hissed, screeched at him. Behind it were 2 smaller members. Their fangs were bloody from a recent kill. Nice raptors, good raptors. Naruto was only met with more hissing and was forced to dive when the alpha pounced on him. Right where he wanted them. Sucker! Naruto grinned as the large creature was barreled into by an even bigger Hatomaru. Both beasts grappled with the other, but Hato's build gave the enlarged Ninken a great advantage compared to the ancient bipedal lizard. Distracted by the sudden appearance of the large fur-clad creature, the Alpha Raptor's much smaller minions couldn't react quickly enough to Naruto's move, Bokuki Kua, Firecracker Wave. While the Fuinjutsu skill he earned from the earth dungeon didn't cause any damage to its intended targets, it remained very useful as a weapons attachment that served to scare as well as make animal-type enemies flinch. And it allowed him set up his next moves. Kajero, Heat Haze. The new sword skill he learned from Hayate had Naruto appear above the duo of immobilized raptors in a frightening burst of speed. The move was very short-ranged, only 5 feet, but made for a decent sneak counterattack. Banrai, Heavy Thunder. The vertical slash, though it was horizontal from Naruto's point of view, sent one of the raptors crashing to the ground while the other went skidding a considerable distance away, thanks to the technique being enhanced by a couple other skills. Unlike Kagero, Banrai was nothing more a basic D-rank technique utilized by heavy blade wielders. It wasn't fancy, but the technique caused a decent amount of damage and had an increased likelihood of knocking the target down or pushback, depending on circumstances. With both ancient reptiles down and even more vulnerable than before, Naruto's intent to finish them off was cut short by a sudden and very much unwanted arrival. The battling group froze as a loud roar unlike any other. At best, Naruto believed part of it sounded like a high-pitched grinding machine. Thunderously rocked the area. The beasts, Hato included, remained immobile. The beast that came crashing through the dense forest with all the grace of a raging bull was incredibly large. Its size was almost comparable to Midori's own, though the summon of Anko was much longer. But even then, Midori lacked the fierce and savage appearance of this primordial creature. Its hind legs looked powerful and muscular, while its arms were the exact opposite. Small and useless compared to those used by the raptors. The face and jaws were covered in sturdy plating, strong enough that Naruto had the impression his sword would simply bounce off even if he used all his strength. Dark red scales covered the rest of its body, while 2 rows of blue bony plates that resembled countless twisting horns ran along its back, from the eyes to the tail. The creature was certainly unique in appearance, but none more so than the eye-catching sword-like tail that made Tetsu's Zanma look like a toothpick by comparison. The sun bounced off the tail that shined as though it were newly polished and cleaned of all grime and whatever else once littered its deadly edge. Status window. Name: the heavy cutting monster of the primordial world, Glavenus, elite rare spawn. Level: HP, CP, Stir, Vit, It, End, Dex, Int, Eind, Wis, Da, Ein, Look, Def. Description: fuck me was a very accurate way, perhaps the only way, that Naruto could describe his current predicament. Rah! Despite its enormous size and heavy-set build, the creature was able to jump into the air at a considerable height and position its body to bring down its massive sword-like tail with all the force of a falling meteor. The impact had Naruto fall flat on his ass, and the sheer force behind it kicked up a great deal of dust that served to blind Naruto to his foe's location, which was never a good thing for anyone while in fight. Hayate and Anko had stressed that a ninja not only needed to keep an eye out on their surroundings, but most importantly ensured that they kept track of their foe. 2. The moment you lost sight of them spelled danger and possibly death if you weren't quick enough. Fortunately, the large dinosaur-like creature wasn't built for stealth if the thundering sound of its heavy steps were anything to go by. "Hato, get out of here!" Naruto ordered. The fear of his Ninken dying was abated since this was an instant dungeon, so even if either was killed, neither Ninja nor Ninken would stay dead. But even then, it was an experience they too could go without. Plus, this was the best dungeon to earn XP at the moment. Dying would only serve to reduce everything they earned back to 0, and then they'd be forced to wait for the penalty to subside. Daten. Gantetsu Doran no Jutsu. Earth Release. Iron Rock Earth Riot Technique. Around him in a 3-meter radius were deadly spears of iron tough rock, ready and willing to skewer any foolish enough to come near him the moment they made a move. The more logical decision would be to run away, but with their current level difference, Naruto would likely die in a single slash of its tail if he made one wrong move. The creature needed to be slowed down to give him and Hato enough time to escape a considerable distance that it wouldn't be worth chasing. But the creature was smarter than Naruto gave it credit. Oh, come on! Abandoning his position, Naruto watched as a great big glob of molten fire struck his previous location, and was forced to cover his eyes when the fiery luggy violently exploded and showered the area with sticky, stinging bits. Ow! Brushing off the cause of his discomfort, Naruto just barely managed to pull off a Kagero to appear above the creature that tried to slice him in two. But the suddenness of it didn't allow Naruto time to properly maneuver himself for a decent counterattack. Instead, the blonde found himself holding on to dear life as the bellowing beast became a bucking bronco. The wild thrashing was highly disorienting, and more than once Naruto found various sections of his head making contact with the hard rows that lined the creature's back whenever it jumped and suddenly spun around. So focused and so intent was it on getting Naruto off its back. Did it fail to notice the charge of an angry 3-horned quadruped with a large bony frill on its head? The apparently fearless creature barreled into the large predator's leg, and both it and Naruto fell down to earth with a loud and resounding thud, Naruto being thrown from its back from the beast. Bark! Raising his head from the dirt, Naruto saw the welcoming face of Hato greeting him, and Naruto quickly put 2 and 2 together. Thanks, boy. With the big brute distracted, we might be able to Boo-ah-ha. Both Ninja and Ninken looked to the origin of frightened cry and were speechless, and could only look on in disbelief as the large tri-horned creature was lifted into the air by its head, its tail raised to the sky, and by Glavenus using only its mouth. Higher and higher it raised the frightened creature until its fear came to a horrible end when its captor brutally slammed it into the ground with such intense ferocity that the earth gave into the incredible force it was subjected to, and the prone form of the Triceratops became deeply embedded into the broken ground. Neither Naruto nor Hato were anywhere in sight when the dust settled to reveal the elite creature feasting on its attacker. Sometime later, both Konoha inhabitants were now safely hidden in an unoccupied cavern, a considerable distance away. Even if the creature found them, the entrance to their current hiding place was too small and narrow for it to fit through, and the rocks likely too thick and too deep, even for one with considerable strength such as it. Taking it as a sign for a break, Naruto and Hatomaru enjoyed each other's company as they munched on some food. A sense of déjà vu overcame him, and this reminded Naruto of the time he and Hato had dealt with the Legion zombie some couple of months ago. Or was it a few months? Man, that time control difference still confuses me. Naruto honestly couldn't remember the exact date of the event. What Naruto did remember of that time was that he had no intention of staying in the academy for one more year if he somehow failed after all he accomplished. Fortunately, it had never come to pass thanks to Anko. On the off chance it had, Naruto knew there were dungeons hidden around the world and other places that offered a better challenge. If he couldn't become a ninja or become Hokage, well, Naruto had always been an adventurist and had often wanted what the world had to offer. He might not be able to be remembered as a badass Hokage, but Naruto would be damned if he didn't make a name for himself and be remembered as a badass ninja. There was no rule that said that to be a ninja you had to be affiliate with a village. Problem was that non-village affiliated ninja had their work cut out for them, and people were often weary of hiring them as many believed them to be nukenin. Not only that, but there were stronger, more powerful, and twisted individuals outside Konoha who would easily take advantage of him. Under the tutelage of 3 gifted teachers, he had become stronger, smarter, and better prepared. But even with his gift, Naruto lacked the experience such individuals wouldn't. What do you think, Hato? The Ninken looked at him. Want to see the world and travel a bit in the future? Arf! The Ninken was down with that. Good boy. The blonde grinned at the young pup. When a solid 20 minutes passed and a decent amount of HP and CP recovered, Naruto decided it was high time that they get back to it. The dungeon was pretty damn big, vast even, and they had only seen a tiny part of it before it was one thing after another until they encountered Glavenus. Naruto hoped the thing dropped a decent sword weapon when he was strong enough to face it. Sure, he could borrow Midori, but that thing was huge, tough, and would most likely give her an intense fight. Plus, it wouldn't give him that sense of accomplishment if he did. Hato was one thing, Midori was another. Alright, let's be smart about this. We got about an hour or so before we need to Hato? Hey, where'd you go, buddy? Arf! Arf! Naruto turned around and spotted the Ninken deeper in the cave, scratching at something on the wall. What is it, bud? He asked and spotted a slight glimmer coming from the rock face. Unable to make it out, and it was times like this Naruto wished Shishoyo hadn't been destroyed. Naruto quickly went outside and then returned with a bundle of branches. Put them all together, Naruto lit them with Hidama to make a fire, and the glimmer became even greater. What was once a small and sparkling crack in the wall was now a series of shining rainbow-colored veins in the cavern. Or, he guessed and used his observato to see if he was right. Yosokani, Elementium Metal. Epic Quality, Tier 3. Item Type, Crafting Material. Durability, One-time use. Description: Yosokani, or Elementium as it more commonly called, is one of the rarest forms of natural chakra metal known in existence and the most superconductive when using elemental chakra. The metal is often used to make the deadliest of weapons as it allows one to flow their chakra with no difficulties compared to regular chakra metal, along with allowing one to perform other unique feats. However, despite its immense rarity and usefulness, being incredibly lightweight and durable, removing impurities and tempering the metal into a desired form is extremely difficult. Few master weaponsmiths in existence are capable of accomplishing such a task, as so few who know the secrets of forging the metal remain, or are willing to share such knowledge. As Naruto processed the information, his mind temporarily shut down as he realized what he had just found thanks to a stroke of luck. When his brain rebooted, the boy couldn't hold in his joy and literally began bouncing off the walls like mad. Fuck! Yeah! Naruto couldn't believe his luck at the incredible find. New. Awesome weapon, you will soon be crap. The happiness he felt quickly left him when his mind processed something just as important: how to get it out. The excited blonde didn't care that it might be a while before he found someone who could properly forge the rare metal ore into a weapon of his choice. The fact that he found something so valuable, and most likely worth millions if regular chakra ore was anything to go by, was more than enough for him. None of that would matter though, if he couldn't extract it from its current location. Shit on a stick. Wenchi. 2 weeks had gone by, though for Anko, Ino, and Hinata it was perhaps closer to 5, and as Anko had predicted, both her kunoichi were up to the standards she felt comfortable with to take on a C-rank mission. Leveling had slowed down significantly due to their recent levels ups, but the point of it all was accomplished and right on time. Now here she was in the Hawkage Tower, patiently awaiting for her village leader to finish up with whichever group was currently in his office, while her kunoichi were being put through the ringer by a clone of hers in one of the training fields. Seeing the office door open, Mariko barely opened her mouth, and the team was hardly out the door before Anko entered the office. Hiruzen merely blinked at the eccentric kunoichi's sudden appearance. "Anko, good timing. I was just about to send for you." "Can it wait? Please say no," were her thoughts. "I'm afraid it can't," he told her. Damn. Luck was not on her side at the moment. "It concerns Naruto, Anko," Hiruzen revealed, and all childish thoughts and excitement were gone. "Hawkage-sama? What I'm about to reveal can't be repeated unless I give you permission. We believe that Mizuki and his lover, and possibly other accomplices we don't know about, were involved in framing Naruto," Hiruzen informed her. "What makes you say that?" Anko had doubts, given that on that night several Anbu that were either close and actually guarding the Hawkage Tower were later found dead, and the autopsy revealed their bodies had been tampered with to make it look like they'd been alive for much longer. Granted, most of those Anbu were still new recruits, but even then it was a very selective group of talented individuals. Only someone or someones of greater talent and skill could get the best of them, and Mizuki and Tsubaki didn't strike Anko as those kinds of individuals. Records indicate they were sent on a mission outside Konoha, but ever since the Academy sabotaging came to light, I've been keeping an eye out on anything suspicious, and this caught my eye, and by this Hiruzen meant a mission scroll he presented to the kunoichi. The mission they went on was your basic patrol duty, and a relatively short one that shouldn't have taken more than a week or two to complete. 5 weeks have since passed, and no contact attempts have been made. And I'm guessing no one's seen him since the scroll incident either, Anko asked, and Hiruzen nodded at her correct assessment. Could it just be taken them longer than usual? It wasn't unheard of, and while couples going on a mission together had its risks, it wasn't a taboo or uncommon either. I initially thought so myself, but the lack of communication coupled with the timeline had me do some further digging. I discovered that the mission was fake. A very good one, but fake nonetheless. And I've recently received word from the patrol group they were meant to join up with, and neither one was seen. Their records are another factor to warrant suspicion. For Mizuki, there was some initial controversy during a mission he undertook that ended with the death of a fellow ninja, and he was put on temporary probation while the investigation took place. Nothing was ever found, and with no proof he was pardoned, and as an apology he was given the instructor position. Despite his time as an academy instructor, Mizuki is well versed in assassination techniques and shuriken jutsu, and those who knew him say he has a silver tongue. Tsubaki, on the other hand, has a notable talent in small range, but multi-layered genjutsu. She's no kurenai, but she was skilled enough that she was selected as a candidate for the Anbu. However, psychological profiling didn't deem her a good fit, and after learning why she failed, she didn't take it well. Well, that explained several questions. Where are they? That, unfortunately, remains unknown to us. And with the head start they have, they could be almost everywhere. Regrettable as that sounded, I suspect Mizuki also had a role in sabotaging the academy. 2. I'm letting you know because Naruto was a target of theirs. They may or may try something down the line when you and your team leave for missions outside of Konoha. Should they make themselves known, I want them captured and brought back if possible for interrogation. Anko nodded as nothing else needed to be said. Wait, missions outside Konoha. The man smiled at the woman. You are here to request a C-rank mission for your team, aren't you? Hiruzen was almost worried Anko would give herself whiplash by how quickly she nodded. We have a few, but none for outside the village at the moment. We do have a few inside that I was saving for our more experienced teams, but given the unique circumstances of yours, I believe they're ready. Wouldn't be here if they weren't, Anko boasted. Even if it wasn't outside the village, a C-rank mission was still a C-rank mission. So what kind is it? Chakra mutation subjugation mission. Hiruzen informed her. Anko barely even blinked as she accepted the quest, and then made her way towards her team. What her village leader said about Mizuki hadn't unsettled her, but the fact that he might try and target Naruto at some point gave her slight pause. Not much, as it was unlikely they'd met the man and his lover anytime soon or ever, and even if they did, both would be in for a rude awakening. And they'd have to go through me first. Naruto could handle himself, but no one targeted her wards and got away with it. The boy had long since grown on her. All of them had grown on her, if she was being honest. Even if Anko showed her affection in her own and unique way. Lift those legs, Blondie! Anko arrived and watched as her clone cackled at the sweat-drenched Kunoichi. Death, pain, and other forms of torture were likely going through the Yamanaka's head, and Anko was at the center of it. The woman couldn't be more proud. Anko watched as Ino stood on one leg on an elevated wooden post, while the other was raised in a striking position before she switched. Around the blonde's legs were 2 metal rings that weighed 5 pounds apiece, while 2 were around her arms. In other words, 10 pounds were added per limb for a total of 40 pounds. It was a trick she learned about from Tenten that Might Gay tried getting Tetsu's daughter into. The girl had passed on the training method. Not that Anko could blame her, but weird as he was, Gay knew his stuff when it came to taijutsu and physical conditioning. The weights weren't much, and Ino wasn't that weak, but having to repeatedly kick with such weights, beginning to weigh her down, coupled with them sliding up and down, served multiple purposes: balance, control, strength, and endurance. It was a fairly new form of training, and so far Ino wasn't doing as bad as initially Anko feared. Sure, it was bad, but then a mold needed to be broken before it could be turned into something great. Again. On the opposite side of the clearing, Anko watched as Hinata was concentrating on dodging the numerous series of metal projectiles being tossed at her with frightening accuracy and speed. Those she didn't manage to dodge, she didn't block with her arms, and instead watched as the metal sparked and get tossed away by an arc of lightning. Hinata continued to run and duck, and try to get as close as possible to Anko's clone, and more electrical arcs appeared as she reduced the distance between herself and her assailant. But Hinata didn't get more than a dozen feet, and the shroud of protective energy failed to flare up when a kunai struck the Hyuga in the leg and had her falling to the ground. Again, the doppelganger ordered, but Anko intervened. "Belay that!" Dismissing her clones, Anko ordered Ino and Hinata to huddle up. "We got a C-rank mission, ladies." "Yes," Ino whopped. "About time."
"Hey, it's her fault for taking so long to improve," Anko snarked. "Don't get too excited though. It's a subjugation quest within Konoha, so we won't be going anywhere special. But before that, where's Naruto?"
Hayate-san and Yugao-san were busy, so he and Hatomaru went to try out that new dungeon he just got. Hinata stammered a bit in her response, but not as badly as when she first started. "No problem, party chat." Anko had sorely wished Naruto had learned of the feature a month ago, give its very useful applications. Jugaki. Meet us at training ground 8 in 10 minutes. We got a C-rank mission. Move it. Bing! "That's annoying," Ino said, and brushed away the pop-up that appeared. It was very useful, but the sound when a message arrived remained annoying still. Regardless of that, all 3 kunoichi made their way towards the designated area that wasn't that far from their location. Arriving in less than a few minutes, Hinata and Ino used the opportunity to rest up and heal and reduce as much fatigue as they could before they began. Fortunately, for them at least, Naruto didn't arrive until 12 minutes later with his trademark smile on his face. Anko had her patented grin of doom instead. "Better have a good reason for being late, Gaki." You bet your sweet ass I do. All three kunoichi blinked at the comment. Alright, thanks for telling me how great my ass is. Anko accepted the compliment. She had an amazing ass in her opinion, and not many gave it the praise it was meant to get. But don't think that sweet talking tactic will stop me from asking again. Trust me, I'll tell you when we're somewhere secure. Anko frowned, but decided to give her longest ward the benefit of the doubt. The blonde male knew better than to mess with her and trying to pull a fast one. 2. So what's the mission? Naruto asked. He was eager and ready to go. Ino and Hinata were the same but much more subdued by comparison. With a wave of her hand, Anko brought up the details. Quest alert! Stingers, pincers, and venom? Oh shit! Main quest. Clear training area. 8 of 100 points. Worth of scorpions. Side quest. Defeat training area 8's boss. Potential rewards. Main quest completion. 4,000 XP, 25,000 Ryo, 450. Reputation. Konoha populacine allowed to undertake more C rank missions. Side quest completion. 2,500 XP, allowed to undertake more C rank missions.
Failure. 550 express, minus 50 reputation. Konoha populace, temporarily unable to undertake C rank missions.
Chapter 16. Oh, for the love of C rank. Are you shitting me? If the group had any attempts of being stealthy whilst in the dungeon, then their attempts utterly failed by the clearing-sized declaration. But Naruto should have guessed or suspected the outcome. No! Despite their desire to wipe that smug look off his face, neither Anko nor Ino could deny that they'd have the exact same look had the situation been reversed. Having several chunks of metal ore worth millions, hopefully more than enough to make a great sword, was nothing to sneeze at. Congratulations, Naruto-kun, Hinata being the kind and warm individual that she was expressed a much nobler display. Gonna have to do something about that, Anko thought. See, why can't you two be like Hinata? Naruto's comment had Hinata blushing. Judging by her development, I'm pretty sure Pale's Eyes is gonna outdo me in a few years' time. Hinata blushed even harder at Anko's comment, and Ino had to admit she was slightly jealous. Arf, titling his head, Hadamaru wasn't entirely sure what the comment meant. Okay, suddenly, rich blonde who will be paying for my drinks and dango till the end of time aside. Naruto blinked but suspected she was being serious. What's the deal with this mission? It's a points game, Naruto revealed to a blank audience. Sighing, the boy elaborated, each enemy is worth a set value. Usually 1 point is given by defeating the weakest enemy, and 5 with the strongest. Rare spawns, mini-bosses, and bosses fall outside this rule by giving us an even greater amount of points. So, in other words, we don't have to beat the boss to complete the mission or clear this dungeon, right? Ino surmised. To clear the dungeon and have access to the next one, we'll need to beat the boss. It's just that in this case there aren't any requirements to get them to appear, and we can leave without penalties so long as we accomplish the requirements of the mission. Naruto explained. The concept was simple enough to understand, and Anko confidently believed her team could handle it. Alright, Midori and I are gonna sit this one out unless I see any true danger. You 3, 4, show me what you've got. With their detection skill as high as it was, the trio of Genin and one Ninkin knew where it was coming from before Anko said anything. All three looked at the exact location of exploding earth the scorpion came from. Naruto had never really seen a scorpion before except in video games. Even then, he knew their appearance had been somewhat romanticized by the artists. The creature before him was large, not quite as large as Hadamaru was in his adult form, but large enough still. It had wicked pincers that looked like they could chop off a limb if enough pressure was added, and its barbed tail was oozing with a green viscous liquid that it didn't take a genius to know was venom. Observe, he announced. Status window. Scorpion drone, level 22. HP, 2100. CP, 1750. Stir, 43. Vit, 64. End, 69. Dex, 59. Int, 15. Wis, 10. Luke, 27. Def, 75. Perks. Harsh Desert Resistance, ILV, 1. 30%. Resistance towards wind-based skills and fire-based skills. Ignores debuffs brought on by desert environments. Scorpid, Tenacity. LV1. Immune to poison-related debuffs, deburning-related debuffs, or bleeding-related debuffs. When HP drops below 20%, DF increase by 30% of total VIT amount. When HP drops below 20%. Hard Carapace. LV1. 500 HP, 30 defense, 30% resistance towards bladed weapons and piercing weapons, 30% resistance towards critical strikes, and 30% resistance towards blunt weapons and taijutsu. Flaws. Bulky LV, 2. When above ground, movement speed reduced by 50%. 50% effectiveness towards evasion. Description. Drones are at the very bottom of the hierarchy, but one shouldn't be fooled despite their large size. Though the weakest, they have an incredible ability to strike their prey with their poison-filled stinger. Unlike their more mature counterparts that are known to blend in with their environment and striking at an opportune time, these ones are known for rapidly digging through the earth and popping up whenever a creature enters their colony's territory. When they have suffered a significant amount of injuries, it is not uncommon for them to flee and recover from their wounds before giving chase once more on the unsuspecting prey. However, despite their exp earned drops. Great, Naruto grumbled. Kenjutsu was out, it would seem, and while most would have assumed Naruto was kicking himself for not buying a new blunt weapon, when he had the chance it wasn't the case. Drawing out his large sword, Naruto mentally called out his new technique, Doton, Gekisuga no Jutsu, Earth Release, Raging Demon's Crushing Fang technique. While his new taijutsu was good, Naruto had the impression it wouldn't be enough, especially since he didn't really focus too much on it compared to everything else he knew. The Gekisuga was a C-rank borderline B-rank technique Naruto had come across on the Abyss auction that he felt would greatly come in handy. The main purposes of the technique was wrapping a weapon in a great amount of earth and rock, thus transforming it into a large studded cudgel of sorts. This not only served to reclassify Naruto's bladed weapon into a blunt one, but also boosted its attack power, too. Unfortunately, because of his weapon's already considerable size and weight, the new weapon was now considerably heavier and difficult to maneuver. His speed took a nosedive, too, unless his air was at a certain level, which was easily taken care of, too. Ninpo, Kongoriki, Ninja Art, Adamant, Strength. Naruto shuddered and gave off a grin that made an off to the side. Anko proud. He felt his strength swell to incredibly envious levels for someone his age. The technique was an improved version of Goriki, and it had upgraded to an A rank 1 to boot. And while its chakra cost per duration was even costlier, Naruto had tons to spare and perks to take the edge off. Naruto felt himself fortunate that the former B rank technique had finally maxed out, and was an upgradable technique. The old version had not been able to make the wielding of this oversized weapon quite as easy. Lifting the oversized club that was nearly twice his size and a half above his body, Naruto couldn't have helped himself if he could, when the look of satisfaction threatened to split his face open. The scorpion's black eyes bulged out comically from its body and threatened to pop the moment the oversized club flattened it like a pancake. The once pristine armor cracked and splintered to reveal its soft, vulnerable body. One hit and already was half of the creature's HP practically gone. Congratulations! Through a special act, you've discovered and unlocked the hidden weakness of scorpions. Broken carapace. Broken carapace. A scorpion's carapace is hard and durable, but it's not indestructible, and can be broken by the right weapon, and with incredible strength. If this happens, the creature loses much of its defense and formidable strength. However, as a result of losing its heavy armor, the creature's speed is considerably improved. Loses benefits of hard carapace and harsh resistance perks. Loses bulky flaw. Star and Vit reduced by 50%. Movement speed increased by 75%. Naruto-kun, Hinata warned him. The Hyuga noticed the scorpion's tail twitched, and no sooner had she shouted out, did something shoot from the barbed appendage. Naruto managed to dodge the projectile, but was surprised to see a nasty green fume rising from the impact area, and the group could hear the sound of sizzling from it. He's lucky. That's corrosive poison, Ino commented, her eyes not once leaving the slowly developing hole. Being from a clan that had knowledge on plant life and poisons since its founding centuries ago allowed her to identify such things. Corrosive poisons were nasty pieces of work. Simplified, they liquefied or ate away at one's insides. A person was both lucky and unlucky if they got hit by a slow-acting one. Chances of saving a limb affected by them were high, but recovery was slow, and the pain was dreadful from what she heard. Fortunately, they were affected by the gamer's ability, so the effects wouldn't be as bad. I hope. Ino really didn't want to test that theory out. Hey, are you two just gonna stand there and gawk, or actually help your teammate? Both knew better that Anko wasn't asking, but ordering. How? Stinger! Naruto's bark was followed by Hatozone. The enlarged Ninken's maw bit down hard on the naked creature's poison delivery limb, and pinning it down to impede its movement. Hato shook his head, and the action dragged the scorpion's body away from the group of genin. Sazenka. 3 scattering flowers. Naruto blinked when Ino took to the offensive, and landed a series of 3 quick successive strikes on the creature's defenseless pincer. The limb couldn't take the assault without its protective shell and became limp and useless on the ground. Hinata, on the other hand, merely struck the creature with a chakra-covered palm thrust to its unprotected head that finally ended the creature. While Hinata lacked the same strength as himself, the Jukin fighting style had techniques that ignored most defenses and had both high critical chance and critical chance multipliers. Okay, first off, nice to see you guys actually have improved in the last little bit, Anko from behind them suddenly announced. However, I saw a number of ways I could have ended that fight more quickly. Gaki! You struck the body instead of the head. You probably could have killed it instantly if that happened, or at least brought its health down even lower. Good call on the stinger, but you should have anticipated that sooner. Blondie! What the hell was with targeting the pincers? They were useless, and it did nothing but prolong the fight. Pale eyes. You were slow to act, but good job. Arigato. Hinata thanked their mentor. Anko waved it off. We're ninja guys. We get in, we get out as quickly and efficiently as we can, and we try not to show off, unless it's to scare the target's very soul out of their bodies. You do that by finding and then targeting the opponent's weakness. From now on, I want to see you guys try and end an enemy with as few hits as possible. Quest alert! Less is better. Main quest: defeat opponents with as few hits as possible. Potential rewards: not stackable. Main quest completion. First outcome: 2,300 XP. Average of 1-3 hits per defeated opponent. 250. Reputation: Anko 1. Main quest completion. Second outcome: 1,400 XP. Average of 4-6 hits per opponent. 100. Reputation: Ganko. Main quest completion. Third outcome: 500 XP, average of 7-10 hits per opponent. Failure. 50 XP? 50? Reputation, Anko? Quest is mandatory. Okay then. Back to work, kiddos. We got scorpions to get rid of. Of course, by we I mean you. Of course she did, were their collective thoughts. For the next 2 hours or so, as apparently many of them liked to hide in different locations, far and wide, that required a good amount of tracking. That's what the Jenin and Ninkin of Team 8 did. All 4 continued to search, and then proceeded to defeat scorpion after scorpion, and racked up point after point while Anko watched. The senior Kunoichi only ever getting involved when a scorpion set their sights on her, but a good burst of her killing intent quickly deterred them. Unfortunately, once underground the creatures were pretty quick, and they traveled deep and far when escaping. At first the group struck mostly with the lower-leveled creatures to ensure they got a feel for their prey, and because their lower health amount allowed them to have an increased chance in felling them with as few hits as possible. It was something Naruto quickly had the rest of the group exploit.
Rather than be irked about it, Anko merely smiled that her wards figured out a way to take advantage of such an opportunity that presented itself. Anko never said anything against, and it showed her that they were using their brains.
As the powerhouse of the group, Naruto was the one who dealt the most damage with as few hits as possible. But the result of their intense training under Anko enabled Ino and Hinata to perform decently against the lower-tier enemies as well. Hinata's fighting style naturally ignored most defenses, and had an incredible critical hit chance and boost, and it was only enhanced by the lightning claw technique. The lighting element having the greatest piercing power and critical chance out of all the primary elements, enabled her to end a scorpion in 1 or 2 blows to the head. After Naruto did his part, Ino, despite her speed, regrettably lacked Naruto's raw power and Hinata's advantageous element and fighting style. Had she been Naruto, that bit for not contributing as much would have irked her. As a result, Ino's role was to render a scorpion immobile by a poison from the Yamanaka clan. Having a flower shop and dealing with plants all their lives, the Yamanaka had developed more than their fair share of effective arachnid and bug poisons. And whenever they encountered a larger and stronger specimen, Ino would take over their body, and then Hinata and Naruto would cover it with exploding seal tags the Uzumaki had learned to fabricate. Finding a nest or attracting a decent amount of scorpions to a single location was the next step, and then sending the mind-controlled creature in their midst on a kamikaze mission was the final one. It was a simple but effective pattern the group fell into. Not perfect, and a few hiccups happened here and there that Anko would most likely criticize them for later, but it remained effective regardless. So far, they had yet to encounter the boss, or a rare spawn. Unfortunate as that was, but there would be other times. Spoke too soon, Naruto realized, and the group prepared themselves when they felt the earth shake and rumble. Anko grinned. All right, the fun's about to begin. And no sooner had she finished saying that did the boss of the area reveal itself. Okay, gross. Ino had seen weird creatures since the gamer reveal, but this took the cake so far. Compared to its weaker but normal-looking minions, the boss had a more atypical body structure one would not associate with a scorpion.
To start, its body color was black and yellow, similar to a wasp or hornet. The back of the carapace looked jagged thanks to the spikes that lined from head to tail, the tail itself looking more like a spiked club with an oversized head with a beak-like spike the size of their forearm. The creature lacked the 8 limbs its lesser kin possessed and instead had 6 legs that ended in a set of lizard-like claws with another pair of pincers replacing the front legs to give it a total of 4.
What was even stranger was the pincers moving back and forth as though they had a will of their own, and the pattern they had gave the group the impression of eyeless heads with black, jagged teeth. The scorpion's head itself looked like it belonged on the body of a crocodile, than that of an arachnid. Oh boy, Naruto was a little concerned at the moment. Status window. Boss. Dekatsu, misplaced mutant arachnid of the desert. Alv 29. HP 5275. CP 3075. Esther 87. Vit 91. End 93. Dex 74, Int 39, Wis 34, Luke 49, Def 110. Special perks: Dungeon Boss Blessing L Do 2000 HP, 750 CP, 17.5% towards all A resistances and E tolerances. All attributes increased by 20, 15 defense. Perks: Harsh Desert Resistance Max 50% resistance towards wind-based skills and fire-based skills. Ignores debuffs brought on by desert environments. Movement speed increases by 70% when below 30% health. Spiked Shell 45. Defense chance of causing damage to opponent when struck by certain taijutsu skills. 15% resistance towards U-bladed weapons and piercing weapons. 15% chances towards E critical hits.
Scorpid Tenacity LV3. Immune to poison-related debuffs, burning-related debuffs, or bleeding-related debuffs when HP drops below 30%. Def increase by 30% of total VIT amount when HP drops below 30%.
Hard Carapace Max 1000 HP, 50 defense, 50% resistance towards C-bladed weapons and piercing weapons, 50% tolerance towards each critical strikes, and 10% resistance towards blunt weapons and taijutsu. Aura of the Leader LV1. Allies gain 15% increase towards attributes, movement speed and effectiveness, power and speed towards skills when in same area. Flaws: Bulky LV3. When above ground, movement speed reduced by 75%. 75% effectiveness towards evasion. Description: a very large mutant and deadly creature with an even deadlier poison. This creature's origin began like many of its kind in the desert. However, it somehow managed to mutate a few steps further, physically changing it more so than its brothers and sisters. As a result, it has gained an even greater defense and has a spiked shell that deters others from attacking it, with certain forms of hand-to-hand techniques least. They wish to harm themselves. Though slower compared to its minions, it's capable of digging very quickly and performing sudden unexpected attacks. Be careful not to be caught in its skill, as it has a high chance of instantly felling the target or taking away a huge chunk of the victim's HP. Exp earned. Drops. Chancing a look behind him, all the while not taking his eyes off the boss, Naruto frowned. While neither Ino nor Hinata were on the verge of exhaustion, both were very tired regardless, despite hiding it well. But Naruto knew better and saw the sweat that had long since begun to coat their bodies. Starting a mission like this after coming off from an intense training session with almost no time to properly recover would do that. Ino and Hinata had certainly improved their stamina and endurance since they first began, but both still had a while to go. Watching as the creature grabbed a boulder the size of his body, the pincers shined brightly as the large piece of stone was crushed and ripped in half. Naruto believed his decision to be the right one. Better they sit this out for now and let him finish the job. Neither had the same amount of HP and end as him, so he'd likely survive the instant death technique. It was highly doubtful Ino and Hinata would be so lucky. If anything, they could give him cover fire. First, however, he was forced to block as the boss attacked him with pieces of the crushed boulder. The force behind it made him grunt, and he was pushed back a few inches. "Hato, keep Ino. Hinata safe," Naruto ordered and got a bark as a response. If either one were caught in its grip, they'd be done for. "What the hell, Naruto?" Ino began to shout but was stopped midway. "Don't argue, Ino." The sternness behind his voice surprised her. "Both of you are exhausted. If you slip up, you die. I'm not going to let that happen." But Naruto? Hinata did not like this one bit. "No buts. Don't go anywhere near it. If you want to help, then cover me," he ordered. The Gaki's right. You did good, but you ain't gonna be able to do anything other than cover fire at the moment. Anko was proud of the two. Both had looked like they wanted to throw in a towel quite a while ago, but had pushed themselves. Anko knew they knew her previous advice rang true. Naruto wouldn't always be there to help them. It was one of the reasons why she spent most of her time with them, so they didn't become dependent on him. They need to push past their boundaries and grow or fall. However, admirable as it was, both couldn't be foolish either. You want to help, then do what the Gaki said. Anko beamed as she saw them nod, and watched as they took out a series of kunai and shuriken attached with tags. It wouldn't be much, but it was better than doing nothing at the moment. Naruto spun away from large serpentine pincers from the right before he launched a counterstrike with his oversized weapon at the appendages that threatened to sever him in half. The action rewarded him with the beast smacking itself in the face and dazing it momentarily. Naruto took advantage of this by performing a neat little number Hayate had taught him in conjunction with a shadow clone, the only one he had gotten down so far. Creating a clone, his control over the technique was better, but his minimum was 5. Naruto went one way while the doppelganger went the other way. Shohaju Monji, Impact Cross. Clone and original swiftly crossed the creature in an X pattern. The sound of the stone maces impacting its target was music to their ears. The technique was intended to be used with a sword, and was meant to be a much speedier execution, but in this case it would have accomplished little to nothing. Naruto half expected to see its shell fall apart, or at the very least, see it faltering. Instead, it was squatted and locked in place, its form unmoving, but the increase in energy could be felt. All of them were speechless, though Anko and Naruto inwardly believed it was cool despite the intent behind it, as chakra reached the tipping point and a funnel of concentrated orange-pinkish fire shot at him from all 4 of them. Naruto switched with the clone and was spared its fate, but even then the air around him instantly became uncomfortable, and the surrounding greenery wilted and dried. The area near where those beams struck were no better. Trees became brittle and fell apart. Flowers became dust in the wind, and the nearby scorpions were no more than mummified cadavers. Watch out! That's a Shakiton, Scorch Release, technique, Anko warned her students. Dual-natured element. Ino recalled and called bull on it too. Naruto dodged as a beam was once again launched at him, and the boy barely had time to block the next with his weapon. Instead of an explosion, the mace became superheated, and a sweat-drenched Naruto couldn't hold on to the red-hot weapon that burned his hands. That was the odd thing about Shakiton. On living things it had a violent reaction. Most commonly was evaporating, turning them into husks or reducing them to ash. On non-living things such as stone and metal, the reaction was much less subdued. Once more, Naruto used Kawarimi to replace himself with a clone, and seeing it evaporate wasn't a pretty sight. Fortunately for him at least, the creature was struck by one of Ino's kunai, and a white cloud coated the creature, and caused its next shot to miss him by a wide margin. "Ian-chan, look at it," Hinata pointed out, and Ino noticed almost instantly what her fellow kunoichi was referring to. The creature was having trouble standing, its pincers shaking, and its tail almost to the ground. "Naruto, that technique takes a lot out of it." "Gotcha. The old hit it while it's down classic, it was." Clones were summoned, and as one they charged the dungeon boss, a battle cry on their lips as they did. Not exactly subtle or ninja-like, but it felt appropriate. Numerous shuriken and kunai were launched by the army of blonde ninja and kunoichi on the sidelines. Exploding tags were set off upon reaching their destination, peppering it with concussive force and poison that even its perk could not ignore. While rocks and dirt were kicked up in the process, but it served to prevent it from locating their exact whereabouts. But as one, the group of Naruto's fell when a green cloud from hell was unleashed from Dekatsu's reptilian-like mouth. The clones felt their bodies spasm and twitch uncontrollably, and one by one did they fall unceremoniously, their forms easy pickings for the creature's barbed tail. Shaiso, Juren Hakai, 4 Shadows Burial, Heavy Consecutive Annihilation. But the creature didn't count on Naruto using the clones as distraction. From above, 4 blonde ninja fell, and with them their heavy stone clubs. Dekatsu's body shined its metallic sheen once more, but it wasn't enough. The might and weight of the combined assault proved too much for the creature to defend against. Weakened by its earlier stunts played a role, and ended with the creature's carapace becoming cracked and splintering like a struck mirror. It wasn't enough to end Dekatsu, but it was enough to bring its health down well past the halfway point. A volley of balls of Shakutan-based flames had Naruto, and the clones jump back lest he end up dried up, or at least gain a nasty debuff that would leave him severely drained. And all of them watched as the ruler of the dungeon rose, its eyes flashing red, and a roar in its maw that was cut short. Soon, Subin no Jutsu, water release, water whip technique. Lash of water wrapped around the creature's body like a serpent would an unfortunate mouse. Ino grunted and sweated buckets, her body at its absolute limit. Naruto could tell the technique had no effect on the creature besides annoying it. Its shell may not be off, but it is cracked and splintered. Ino grinned evilly. Light him up, Hinata. Nothing was said by the kunoichi, and Naruto looked on as Hinata's electrically charged hand made contact with the water trick. The creature screeched in agony as the lightning did its job, and began to painfully bypass its outer shell, and fry up its soft and vulnerable insides. Paralyzed by the effects of the technique, Naruto used the remaining clones and had them launch a unforgiving series of katon, Inka Hayaki, no Jutsu, fire release, shadow fire of 100 demons technique, at the creature. The effectiveness of the flames was severely reduced despite the amount of demonic flaming heads striking its paralyzed form. Dekatsu has been afflicted with the Euhysteria debuff. His gamble paying off, Naruto rushed at the creature that was too frightened to mount a proper defense. Dekatsu shot balls of fire blindly and without abandon in all directions, its hysterical state making it strike itself as well. By chance, one of them struck Naruto's weapon on the down. Naruto gritted his teeth and endured the pain as he continued the maneuver with all his might. Naruto couldn't help himself from shouting out, "Zugaisai, Skull Crush," and looked on as the red-hot weapon struck home on the dungeon boss's face. Dekatsu's skull cracked and then shattered into countless pieces, its protection fully gone. Naruto watched as the creature thrashed as its head began to shrivel up. The thrashing didn't last long before its movements became stiff as a dried-up tree. The collective thoughts of the group proved true seconds later when the shriveled-up dungeon boss disappeared into a series of collective lights. It was over. They had won. Quest completed. Stingers, pincers, and venom. Oh shit! Main quest. Clear training area. 8 of 100 points worth of scorpions accomplished. Side quest. Defeat training area 8's boss accomplished. Total rewards including perks. Main quest completion. 7,475 XP, 25,000. Rio 495. Reputation Konoha Population. Allowed to undertake even more. C-rank missions. Quest completed. Less is better. Main quest. Defeat opponents with as few hits as possible. Main quest completion outcome 1. Average of 1-3. Hits per defeated opponent, failed. Main quest completion 2. Average of 4-6 hits per defeated opponent, accomplished. Total rewards including perks. 1610, XP, 110, Reputation, 1 ko. Naruto sighed at his luck. Having already leveled up in the dungeon approximately 40-odd minutes ago, even then the large amount of XP from the enemies wasn't enough to earn him another level-up boost. Sweet! I leveled up, Ino shouted. So did I, Hinata smiled. Arf? You too. Now Naruto was depressed. From the side, Enko said nothing as she looked at her students and the Ninkin. All 3 and Hadamaru had cuts, and the kunoichi had shaky legs and sweat covering their faces in several areas, but they were happy nonetheless. The scorpion monstrosity was dead, thought it could have been done a bit better. They would have to do better down the line. Ino and Hinata looked ready to call it a day or two, but it had been worth it in the end. Not bad for their first C rank, Anko thought. Sweet! The three kunoichi heard Naruto whooped and hazarded a guess that he found an item that was a good one. It dropped a key and a weapon. Though the former presented less of a problem, splitting money was easy enough. But who was going to get what? That went doubly so for the weapon. What are these? Ino asked as she held up a pair of gauntlet-looking items. Dekatsu no Kamu, Dekatsu's Bite. Very rare quality. Tier 1. Item type: Fist. Weapon armor. Item modifier rank: Dex, EACC. Durability: 110, 110. Description: At first glance, it is a seemingly unassuming gauntlet with no extraordinary features or abilities other than its decent protection. However, it takes after its namesake for a reason, as the clawed weapon allows for exceptional and painful grappling. Additionally, hidden in the gauntlets are two pair of blades that can suddenly pop out and strike out at a foe. The action is sudden and leaves the opponent with little to no time to react. The blades are not the only things to worry about, as they can release a corrosive poison that eats away at armor and flesh alike. Attack. Power. 4154. Modifier perks. Special. Perk. Upgradable. 3 levels.
Bonus stats perks. 20 def, 15% effectiveness towards grappling skills, Scorpid Tenacity, LV1. Upgrade level 1 required.
Weapon skills. Midori Gasumi, Green Mist, Dokuai, Toxic Love. Upgrade level 2 required. Upgrade level 3 required.
Fuinjutsu slots available. 2 major slots, 2 minor slots.
Anko released a sharp whistle as she and her team read the description. It certainly was impressive, to say the least. Nice, and an upgradable weapon too. Naruto couldn't help himself. Upgradable means it can be improved even further. Better attack power, defense, everything. See, it even unlocks new perks and skills when it's upgraded, Naruto pointed out. That was useful. Okay, I gotta admit that does sound awesome. Sorry to say, but you're passing on this one. Gaki? Anko informed him, and Naruto just shrugged. He wasn't all that bummed at not getting it, since there'd be better weapons in the future. And since Naruto already had a weapon, it really was no skin off his nose. Which left herself, Ino and Hinata, and Naruto knew Anko personally didn't care for using weapons except for kunai and poisons. She knew Tanto and some sword-related techniques, but wasn't an avid practitioner. So, which one of you gets it? The most logical choice was Hinata, of course, as her clan specialized in taijutsu, and such a weapon could serve to complement her fighting style. But at the same time, Anko was trying to prevent them from specializing too much into a particular field. Hinata's gentle fist was already deadly as it was, and would only get stronger as she got better. Adding the weapon to it would make it more effective, but at the same time it was kind of predictable too. She was trying to get them to branch out for a reason after all. Plus, considering what it offered in terms of skills, made the choice even more obvious. Congrats, Blondie! They're yours! Ino was stunned, as she honestly thought Anko would have given them to Hinata. But the girl likely followed along the same train of thought as Anko. Still a bit stunned, Ino put on the gauntlet-like weapons nonetheless, and found to her surprise that they were pretty light. Wish they came in another color, though, Ino muttered. Details. What's next? Anko asked. A recipe for intermediate-grade scorpion poison, and 2 intermediate-grade scorpion poison vials. Naruto knew a bit about poisons from Anko, but wasn't really all that interested in learning anything about them. Probably best if you or Ino got them, Naruto said. I'll take that, Anko declared. While Ino was already learning poisons from the older kunoichi, the woman wouldn't be letting her learn such an advanced one until much later. Finding the chest had not been all that difficult. Much like the other times he had to find the chests, this one was located near the dungeon exit. Of course, they had to fight off a few scorpions on the way. Most of them had been taken care of by Anko or Naruto because of how tired and weak Ino and Hinata were. The woman felt she could cut him a bit of slack. When they opened the treasure chest, inside had been a heaping 80,000 ryo that was split 4 ways. As a result, each member of Team 8, minus Haramaru of course, received a decent 20,000 ryo in the process. Aside from that, the only noteworthy articles inside the chest were a few health potions, always welcoming in Naruto's opinion, and a skill scroll that none of them could us. Tough luck getting that, Anko told them. You'd be better off selling it. Shakutan is a rare ability to have, and the only place that breeds those that can are back in K's, no Kuni, and even then it was rare. So, more money, Ino asked the other two. I'll see what it goes for and go from there. Sorry, Hinata. Naruto felt bad that Hinata hadn't gotten anything other than the money. And from what Naruto had learned about them, he doubted the girl needed it, because her father was the leader of a very wealthy clan, and she most likely had a decent amount of money to her name already. It's all right, Naruto-kun, Hinata told him with a smile. But Naruto knew that face she gave him meant she was a little disappointed for not getting anything. It's not like it's a big deal anyway, Hinata. The slightly downed Hyuga looked at her crush for saying that there's tons of dungeons out there and I'll betcha that there's bound to be something that will suit you. The Gaki's right, pale eyes. Sooner or later you'll get something. Anko smiled and pulled the girl into a one-armed hug. Don't worry about it. Good things come to those who wait, as they say. Hi. Hinata nodded, and her mood, even if it was lightly, perked up at the words of comfort. First, though, we need to get out of here. Gaki, take us home. The boy didn't need to be told twice and subsequently shouted out a command before each and every one of them found themselves back into the mundane version of the training ground. Anko felt they deserved a decent break before the were to report their success to the Sandang. Once they were ready, Anko ordered her team that they were heading to the Hawkage Tower, and then decided that they'd call it a day. The group arrived in minimal time despite the fatigue of 2 of their members, and as they ascended the stairs to the Hawkage's office, Team 8 passed by several Jonin and their respective teams of their own. All of them were older teams that had been around for more than a year or so, and many looked perplexed at the state they were in. Yash, Anko-san. Oh shit, of all the rotten timing, Anko groused and cursed her rotten luck. Nice as he was, too nice in Anko's opinion. The taijutsu virtuoso of Konoha was good in small doses. Hey, what's up, gay? Nothing much, my youthful friend. The eccentric taijutsu master of Konoha grinned at the woman before directing his attention to the genin. Oh ho ho! So these are you students, he beamed. Yep, they're still wet behind the ears and still need a little tuning up, but they'll get there eventually. Team 8, this is Maito Guy. He's Konoha's foremost taijutsu expert and master. Hell, probably in all of Hai no Kuni. And beyond, she added. Guy, this is Team 8. That's Geiki Blondie and Pale's eyes. Arf! Haramaru barked at being left out. Oh yeah, and that's Puchigaki, she said half-heartedly. Grrr. We have names, you know. Ino and Naruto, deadpanned as the woman shrugged. Leave it to Anko to introduce them by their nicknames. I'm Yamanaka Ino, that's Hyuga Hinata, that's Haramaru, and you likely already know the resident prank master of Konoha. She smirked as her teammate. Naruto merely shrugged. Hey, I'm good at what I do. Ah, yes, Guy nodded. The man had seen a few of the boys' pranks on occasion, and thought them to have been creative to say the least. Got a problem with my pranks? Gekamayu-sensei, intense eyebrows master. Naruto was a little defensive, while Guy blinked at the name he was given. Baka. Ino knew Naruto was slow at times, but this was taking then Kate, no matter how truthfully the name fit. However, before she could apologize and reprimand him, both Anko and Gay burst out laughing instead. Gekimayu? That's a new one. The man chuckled, much to Naruto's surprise. The hell? Ino half guessed the man to get angry, not laugh it off. The ninja world was full of weirdos, it seemed. Say, guy, where's your team? Anko asked. They didn't die from overkill, did they? I really liked 10-10. No, my glorious students are off today. Lee's running laps around Konoha last I heard. He started an hour ago, so he should be on lap 54 by now. He mused while Ino and Naruto's eyes threatened to bulge out. 50 laps around Konoha in an hour. The idea of a genin capable of doing that was nuts in their minds. Naruto considered himself strong and had immense stamina compared to other genin, but even he doubted he'd be capable of doing what this Lee character was doing. I need to up my training, he thought. If there were people close to his age that were capable of doing such a thing, then Naruto knew others would reach the Hokage title before him. Tenten's running her family shop, and Neji, I think, is at the Hyuga compound, he said, and neither he nor Anko missed the way Hinata flinch at the mention of his name. So, this is the clan's former heiress and Neji's cousin. Guy wasn't the most astute individual in the world, but he was quite perceptive and attentive. The man had heard about his student's cousin, having seen her the odd time and everything else. The man frowned internally as the girl before him didn't have the arrogance or haughty demeanor that most main family members had. It was evident by the way she moved and stood that she was lacking in confidence and had some emotional baggage, but nowhere as bad as it was made out to be. It was nothing like Neji had mentioned before. Even now, his anger still clouds his judgment. The man thought before putting the thoughts away. Well, I'm off to see how Lee's doing, Anko-san. Enjoy teaching, he said, and gave the woman his well-known nice guy pose. To the astonishment of Naruto and Ino, the pose included a thumbs up, winking and smiling with teeth so white they gave off a proverbial ping. As he left in a blur, Naruto and Ino were left stunned and motionless. Does that always happen? Trust me, I've seen something far worse. Anko shuddered at the horrible memory. Make no mistake, Guy's an odd duck, and that was putting it extremely lightly, but the man's easily one of Konoha's most powerful ninja. His taijutsu is frightening and second to none in Hai no Kuni. Anko didn't know the true extent of the man's power, but Anko guessed it would be devastating if the man went all out. Continuing on their original trek to the Hokage's office, Anko informed the secretary and only needed to wait less than 10 seconds before they were permitted to enter. Teammate is back from their mission. Hokage-sama. Hiruzen looked up, and despite a few cuts and bruises, the team wasn't in a bad state. Are they all gone? Not quite, Anko chuckled, but explained the situation to the village leader. Hiruzen held an impassive look, but nodded all the same. Well, at the very least their numbers have been significantly reduced, and they won't be venturing to other training areas. If anything, I'll have some posted to monitor the area from time to time. At any rate, well done. It seems you've proven yourselves ready for C-rank missions, Hiruzen congratulated the team. Yes! Hiruzen laughed at the boy's exuberant shout. You'll still be required to take D-rank missions, Naruto-kun. Why do you gotta bust balls, Gigi? Naruto whined. Yeah, that's my job, Anko commented. She ignored her student's look. I lead a genin team once myself, Naruto-kun. I know all too well how to bust balls. Naruto blinked, and the kunoichi of the group were left agape. None of them ever believed they'd ever hear the esteemed professor utter such words. Respect, Sandaime-sama. What else could Anko say to her senior? Thank you. The man tipped his hat at the first-time mentor. Now, while this certainly proves you're all capable of undertaking C-rank missions, you won't be handed them all left and right. However, of the new graduates, I will keep your team in mind. But I expect you to keep it up. The subtle warning was heard loud and clear by all of them. Hiruzen would throw them a bone, but they had to do their share and continue to improve. Don't worry. For the rest of today, we rest up, but tomorrow, I'll be reminding them I'm not going to go easy on them. All three, Genin and the Ninkin, felt cold as ice at those foreboding words. As they left the office, Hiruzen didn't doubt Anko's proclamation. Out of all the newly formed teams, Anko's was the only one doing noticeable progress. The other teams weren't doing quite as well, even with Kurenai helping them at the odd occasion. Each had their own set of problems. Without Ino, Azuma was having a bit of trouble finding a way to get all three of them to work effectively during combat. It wasn't a case of them not getting along, but more of a case of their fighting styles and personalities being quite different than what he had anticipated.
Kakashi was struggling with the personalities of his students clashing with one another that made them butt heads and prevented a cohesive unit. Sasuke's lone wolf mentality, Kiba's alpha complex, and Sakura's naivety and fangirlism despite her remarkable intelligence. There were moments of them working remarkably and surprisingly well, but such moments were quite fleeting from what he observed.
Only time would tell if the latter two teams would be ready for the upcoming Chunin exams, only 4 months away. Over a month later. Unknown. Chakra mutation. LV. HP. CP. Stir. Vit. It. End. Dex. Int. Eind. Wis. Look. Defense. Special perk. Perks. Status effect. Description: a very large lizard-like chakra mutation with white fur on its back and a bushy tail. Not much is known about this strange creature other than it not to be dealt with lightly. Its rough skin offers it protection for many forms of attack, however. Its skin is much softer on its stomach, and therefore more vulnerable. Despite its incredible size, this creature is quite fast and nimble, to the point it's capable of performing evasive maneuvers and sneak attacks in seconds. For some reason or another, though, there is something odder about this chakra mutation than others. Why is that? Oh shit, Naruto didn't like this at all. Especially since the damn thing had a multitude of question marks on its stats and in its perks. As he eyed the beast, Naruto wondered if they should retreat. The mission had been a relatively simple one, or it was much simpler than before when they first took it over a month ago. The Scorpion's number had developed a recent surge, and Team 8 was charged with dealing with them again. That they'd encounter this powerful foe of unknown levels threw them off. As he looked at Anko, the look she had him assume she was contemplating if they should stay or not. Gaki. Repel. The powerful foe to clear the dungeon. Well, that's convenient, he heard her mutter. Gaki, what do we have to do to repel it? She asked. If it's anything like the games I've played, then we need to bring its health down below 50% or more, Naruto informed her. That was all well and good, but exactly what that number posed another question. The Jonin instructor of Team 8 nodded before she looked at her other students. Ino, Hinata, you two give us cover fire. Anko silently cursed that Midori wasn't with them at the moment. While the serpent was faithful to Anko, she wasn't with her 24/7, like many believed, and occasionally left to do her own thing. Talk about fucking luck. Had Midori been here, the fight would have been over quickly and easily. Hado with me, he ordered, and got a bark as a reply. All right, let's do this, Gaki, Anko declared before she strategically charged the creature at speeds Naruto could not match. However, that didn't stop the only male of the team, and he soon followed right behind her. The creature itself releasing a loud and vicious hiss that closely resembled the rattle of a snake. Its razor-sharp claws, easily the size of his hands if not larger, were digging into the ground and leaving wicked grooves in its wake as it made its way towards them.
Anko ducked under a tail swipe with ease and then jumped as it made to bite at her, a hint of electricity following it. The woman soared over its back and launched a volley of shuriken laced with her personal poisons with as much strength as she could muster. Unfortunately, while some of the shuriken struck home, the rest had little to no effect as most bounced off its hide.
Anko landed on a nearby rock formation and was forced to dodge as the lizard used its tail to send several feather-like spines her way. The woman didn't doubt it was done as retaliation for the stunt she pulled. Granted, Anko wasn't the most physically endowed individual compared to others such as Guy, Azuma, and Kakashi, but she at least thought it would be enough to cut the creature. Guess I need some training of my own. Part of her also knew that if the seal wasn't on her, or if she accessed it, her strength would increase to the point that cutting the creature up would be child's play. Even if she had any desire to use the dark power of the seal, which she didn't, because of how long it had been since she used it, accessing that power would be very difficult. Guess I gotta make do, she thought before she quickly prepared for her next move. While the creature was very fast, Anko knew she was faster. As Anko prepared, Naruto created several clones and charged at creature with his sword out of its sheath. The lizard, however, met the rushing clones before it suddenly performed a spin that sent itself airborne. Several of the clones were destroyed in the process, while others managed to dodge in time. But even then, a few were quickly destroyed or forced to continue dodging as it continued its assault. Bark. Naruto watched as Hato's spinning and fire-covered form barreled into the creature with little finesses and watched as the two crashed the ground. Hato's fire-covered maw biting into the beast's neck, but the nape was too wide for Hato to fully take advantage of the situation. Instead, the Ninken used its claws to rake and dig in, and held on tightly while his fangs tried to find a decent hold.
Their foe rectified this by bellowing, and everyone looked on as electricity sparked around it and struck all those unfortunately too close to its form. Hato was forced to let go despite his resilience and was launched a considerable distance from the enraged lighting-clad oddity.
Of course it wasn't going to be easy, Anko groaned, and then readied a whip of sickly yellow energy before she charged. Hiruzen merely batted his eyes, once and then twice before he took in a deep breath, and then proceeded to rub his temples. Hiruzen tried to stifle the migraine he knew was about to show itself as best he could. Anko, would you mind telling me why your team looks as though they went into a battlefield? The man exaggerated, but the scene before spoke for itself. Naruto and Hatomaru were ragged and looked as though they had taken the worst of it, judging by the cuts and bruises Hiruzen spotted. He also observed that, despite the former being known for his stamina, the boy had quite a large amount of sweat, and his breathing looked rapid. Ino and Hinata both looked relatively fine by comparison, and lacked the same amount of cuts and bruises. From teammates' appearance, Hiruzen thought they had gone through a meat grinder.
Well, she drawled, it may have gotten a little rough. Anko laughed a bit and had a sheepish look adorning her face. But on the bright side, we came out stronger than ever.
Speak for yourself, Anko-sensei. All three genin thought. Are they all right? Hiruzen asked. Meh, they'll get over it. Anko smiled but winced lightly and held her side a little more tightly. Hiruzen guessed the woman sported either a fractured or broken rib at the moment. She was definitely doing a lousy job hiding it, but an excellent one at suppressing the pain. I see. At any rate, should another incident occur once more, can I count your team again? You damn well know it, Anko grinned but winced once more. No pain, no gain is my motto. How many freaking mottos does she have? Ino and Naruto simultaneously thought, though the genin couldn't help but agree that Anko certainly lived up to the pain aspect of the same. I am curious, Anko. What happened? Team 8 had since accomplished 4 C-ranked mission, including this one, and his occasional observation demonstrated that they had since improved. He recalled the last time the group had faced these creatures, and they hadn't come back as ragged as they did now. Have the scorpions become stronger? Nah, this was a freaking lighting lizard, Anko informed him. But it only had Hiruzen asking, lightning lizard. Yeah. We ran into a little snag at the end of the mission. Damn thing came out of nowhere. No big deal, Anko waved off his concern. The Sandaime wasn't having any of it, however. Explain. Anko recognized Hiruzen's tone as one that left little for argument. For the, Next, little while Anko explained what occurred during the mission with vivid details. Hiruzen, for his part, remained impassive as he listened to the jonin, and never said a word as the woman told the story. As Anko ended the mission brief, Hiruzen released a deep sigh, and Anko could not tell if such a thing was good or bad. You said that creature you faced began to pulse and radiate with an unnatural chakra towards the end. He asked for clarification. Yeah, it was weird, Gigi. One moment the damn thing looked like it wanted to rip us to shreds, and the next it looked like it was in pain and made a run for it. Why? Something wrong? Naruto asked. Anko had a hunch that the man knew something. He wouldn't have asked otherwise. Hopefully it's nothing, and I'll have some ninja keep an eye and ear out for that thing if it shows up once more. But knowing your luck and Naruto's ability, I'd hazard a guess you will encounter that creature again. Unfortunately, that creature will be stronger and more deadlier than ever once it undergoes its metamorphosis. Hiruzen sighed. You mean this has happened before? Hokage-sama. Ino spoke. It's rare for such a thing to occur, but not unheard of. It was more common in the era of warring states. From what you've described, the chances of it happening to this creature are unfortunately quite high. Most chakra mutations merely change in size, gain unique abilities not unlike those from summons, and the odd one gains chimeric-like features. Others are sometimes known to mutate even a few steps further, and can become quite dangerous. Luckily, your description indicates that it's only in the beginning stages. My guess is it went to the training grounds to feed, as when this occurs these creatures become quite vulnerable, and it requires a lot of energy. Undergoing a metamorphosis isn't an instantaneous process. At the moment, I'd wager it's seeking shelter someplace hidden until the process is complete. How long till this thing's done with its change? Anko needed to know. She had to prepare her team as much as she could if or when the damn reptile came back for some payback. Such a process is hard to determine as it varies from creature to creature. It could be days, weeks, or months. It depends on the creature, really. One thing they all have in common is that they'll seek out those that previously injured them. Why? Hinata asked. To become stronger. Hiruzen continued despite the Hyuga's look. Chakra mutations feed on just about anything, but instinctively, they want to devour anything with chakra. And beings with a lot of chakra or unique chakra are their preferred meal, as it increases their chances of getting stronger. Fortunately, they still have their animal instincts, so they steer clear of anything too strong for them to take on unless they feel their territory is threatened. It's why most of them are found in the wilds. I see. Hinata had wondered why such creatures were never seen in Konoha, but its outskirts. Instead, where the training grounds usually were. You'd better prepare your genin for what may come, Anko. I've dealt with a few of these creatures before I was even the Sandaime of Konoha, and heed my advice when I say this. Don't let anything up to chance. If you do, you'll come to regret it. From the way Hiruzen spoke and his posture and the subtle shifts in tone, Anko knew that the man had faced off against an exceptionally powerful creature that may have taken the lives of those closest to him. And even before he became Hokage Sarutobi, Hiruzen had been a force to be reckoned with. Anko wasn't about to let that happen to her team. Anko was many things: promiscuous, insatiable, outspoken, etc. But Anko would sooner die, or let herself be dragged to hell, than be the cause of her team's death. Even if it means making a deal with the King of Hell himself, Anko resolutely declared. Very good, Anko. Hiruzen had no doubt she'd do it. Anko only had a few people she cared for and didn't let many in. But when she did, they had a unique but loyal friend. Now, before you leave, I have another C-rank mission for you. What creatures do we have to deal with this time? As it was, the team had earned the nickname the Exterminators. But Hiruzen chuckled. Actually, this is a mission outside Konoha. Don't mess with me, Gigi. You're serious. Finally, something different. Very serious, Naruto. You'll be required to go to Yuzukamura, the man revealed. That's the village that deals with agriculture and supplies. Konoha with 14% of its food supply, correct. Top marks, Hinata. Hiruzen applauded, but given her clan he had a feeling she'd know that bit. You want to give them the rundown of the area. Anko. The woman shrugged but obliged. Might as well. As your teammate mentioned, Yuzukamura is an agricultural village near the border of Kawa, no Kuni and half a day north of the Mikazuki Gulf. The area is very fertile, and allows for various natural produce you otherwise can't grow in. I know Kuni, but it's a hellishly isolated place packed with marshes, rivers, and very uneven terrain that make getting to it a chore. They have no ninja of their own, but have a decent number of militia-trained individuals. For what that's worth. It's a very unaccommodating place, so setting up a patrol and a proper supply line is too much of a hassle, given its geography. Without a guide, and even with us going at ninja speed, it'll likely take us a week to get from here to there. Or, with a guide. No border patrol, Anko-sensei. Ino asked. The woman shook her head. The terrain on the border between Kawa and Hai. No Kuni in that part of the map is too dangerous to have one. It hosts numerous rivers, both lengthy and wide and very hazardous, even for ninja as the landscape is very unstable. The largest is nearly a mile in width, so conventional crossings are impossible. All hopes of building a bridge there were abandoned a long time ago. Because of that, it's not until you go north and get closer to Tanzakakuge where the crossings are considerably shorter and safer. And you only have a couple of rivers to deal with, but we already have patrols in place. To get to either side in that area requires an expert guide, too. Okay, so what the problem then, Gigi? As Anko mentioned, they have their own militia and none trained as ninja, but they have certain skills that make it easy for them to navigate in those areas. However, they've recently run into trouble with bandits and have encountered a rising number of casualties, some of which have gone missing alongside several shipments. Trade has suffered for it, and Konoha's shipment is next to be delivered. We need these bandits dealt with and if possible rescue any hostage, he informed the group. Let me guess, ninja-led bandits, Anko surmised. Unknown, as all they find are bodies and looted caravans, but it's very likely. Yuzukamura's militia has dealt with bandits before, but incidents from past encounters have never caused this much trouble or this number of casualties. So far they've been unable to locate their whereabouts, and those that set out to find them aren't seen again, or worse. Be vigilant and if possible capture the ones responsible. Inform your clans and prepare to leave tomorrow bright and early. Dismissed. Quest alert. Clear the bandits from Yuzukamura. Main quest primary objective. Find and eliminate the bandits. Main quest secondary objective. Find and capture the bandits' leader or leaders. Side quest. If possible, save any hostages. Hidden quest. Potential rewards. Main quest primary objective. 300 XP per bandit eliminated. 450 XP per bandit captured. Main quest secondary objective. XP per bandit leader captured and 250. Reputation. Konoha and Yuzukamura, half if killed. Side quest. 550. XP per hostage saved. Hidden quest. Failure. 500. Reputation Konoha, and 1000. Reputation Yuzukamura. Quest is mandatory. Status window. Name: Uzumaki. Naruto. Job: Genin. Level: 29. Next level: 44%, 100%. HP: 11,165. CP: 20,210. Stat area 71. Vit: 331. End: 454. Dex: 91. Int: 53. Wis: 59. Cha: 16. Look. Def, 25. Attribute points, 11. Ordinary, perk points, 1. Special, perk points, 2. Status window. Name, Hadamaru. Job, Ninkin. Level, 23, next level, 21%, 100%. HP, 1650. CP, 11. Star, 39. Vit, 66. End, 44. Dex, 46. Int, 20. Wis, 29. Cha, 33. Look, 28. Def, 26. Attribute points, 10. Common perk points, 1. Special perk points, 0. Status window. Name, Yuga Hinata. Job, Genin. Level, 20, next level, 7%, 100%. HP, 1225. CP, 1775. Star, 31. Vit, 49. End, 71. Dex, 59. Int, 71. Wiz, 66. Cha, 20. Look, 16. Def, 10. Attribute points, 13. Common perk points, 1. Special perk points, 0. Status window. Name, Yamanaka Ino. Job, Genin. Level, 18, next level, 28%, 100%. HP, 1150. CP, 1575. Star Yarn, 36. Vit, 46. End, 63. Dex, 63. Int, 61. Wis, 57. Cha, 81. Luke, 25. Def, 10. Attribute points, 16. Common perk points, 1. Special perk points, 0. Chapter 17. Rogue Gallery. As ordered by their village leader, Team 8 had risen bright and early the next day, and made their way towards the Great Gate. Packing was virtually unnecessary given that storage scrolls had long since become redundant because of the inventory box, and little needed to be added to the storage space thanks to previous overnight training sessions in and outside of dungeons. However, Anko had ordered scrolls and backpacks to be carried by her genin nonetheless to avoid unwanted questions. Naruto, ever eager and willing to go outside Konoha for the first time in his life, had arrived at the gate before any other member of Team 8, not including his Ninkin. Where Naruto went, Hado went. "Hey, kid!" Looking behind him, Naruto noticed the well-known gate pair of Konoha, Hagane Kotetsu and Kamizuki Izumo. Two Chunin, Naruto knew all too well. Outside of Iroka, both men were two of the few Chunin that Naruto avoided when it came to his pranks, at least when together, and even then there was hesitance. While not individually successful as Iroka was when it came to capturing him, 6 times out of 10 were Kotetsu, and Izumo successful in capturing him, and avoiding his traps despite their laid-back and nonchalant demeanor. Their chances of success were higher when working together, which was almost all the time. "Yo!" was the simple greeting. "Heard your team is being sent out for an outside mission," remarked Kotetsu. The Chunin with dark hair and a bandage across the bridge of his nose to the back of his head. "Yep." Naruto saw no point in denying it. "Congrats? Now we don't have to stop you from trying to sneak out," laughed Izumo, the one with a bandana-like forehead protector and a brown-haired bang covering his right eye. The genin frowned at the comment but couldn't fault the Chunin for it. Naruto, being an adventurer at heart, wanted to see what was outside Konoha more than once when he was younger, but hadn't been allowed by the Sandaime unless someone was with him. Being who he was, the young boy had tried and failed in numerous attempts to go outside Konoha's walls by himself, usually being stopped by the two Chunin before him. It had taken the threat of him never having ramen ever again to stop, and thus the top of the Hawkage Mountain became one of his favorite spots, because it allowed him to see not only all that Konoha had to offer, but well beyond the Great Wall. 2. Morning lightweights? Anko, the Chunin duo, greeted the Jonin. Lightweights? Drinking buddies, but they can't hold their drink worth shit, she elaborated. Both Chunin were decent individuals but sucked as drinking partners in Anko's personal opinion. Hey, we do alright. Yeah, we're not the one with a 50-year-old liver. Kunai in her hand and a serpent coming out of her sleeve had them stiffen, and instantly regretting their foolish words. What was that? Nothing? It was Kotetsu. You backstabbing asshole. You and I agreed it was every man for himself when Anko gets pissed. Doesn't make you any less of an asshole. Are they always like this? Asked the Yamanaka that arrived alongside her Hyuga teammate. Both could only look on at the bickering duo. Meh, Anko shrugged. You get used to it. Pretty much all ninjas have the odd quirk, or 3. The group of Genin and Chunin interpreted the message for what she actually meant. All ninjas were crazy in some way. Anko was no exception, but the woman didn't bother to hide her craziness. Regardless, seeing her putting away the serpent and the kunai had both Chunin breathe a sigh of relief that didn't last more than a nanosecond. I'll deal with you two when I get back. We'll bring the dango and booze, both declared and wept. The peace offering was by no means going to be cheap for either of them, but it was better than the alternative. Apology accepted. Now then, here's what's happening. Spinning around, Anko's gaze fell upon her team. We travel south from Konoha for a day and a half or two before we meet up with a guide the client village assigned for us. Once we do, it'll take us another 2, maybe more, to reach Yuzukamura. Be on guard, as once we enter the area, we may encounter bandits or some local wildlife. Crocodiles? Maybe a few, and it's actually alligators, and even then they're not that big of a deal with. It would have been another story if they were going to the land of swamps, where the smallest of them was easily over 2 times the length of an ordinary alligator, but I was referring to leeches and mosquitoes. Seeing the woman shudder, Naruto asked, "What's so bad about that? Pretty sure Ino can whip something up, right?" And the only male ninja of the group earned a nod from the Yamanaka. "Afraid we're gonna have to do without," Anko informed him and almost whined herself. Helpful as they are, and the Yamanaka clan make the best, their repellents have an odor to them. And before you ask, the Aburame clan don't make any because they like bugs. We have no idea who we're dealing with, and a person's scent can give their location away. I received some last-minute intel from Hokage-sama, and apparently, no matter what route or how well hidden the caravan was, or whenever they tried setting up an ambush, they were still found. The Inuzuka clan isn't the only one with an enhanced olfactory system. So, no repellents, I'm sorry to say. And she was being honest. Leech and mosquito bites sucked. The former more so in this case because these weren't your toothpick-sized bloodsuckers, but close relatives to the palm-sized ones found in Konoha's infamous Forest of Death. Severe blood loss happened in seconds if a decent number of them managed to latch on. Ah, crap. So far this mission was off to a good start in Naruto's opinion. Wenchi. This bites, Inuzuka Kiba groaned as he pulled another weed from the garden of some lazy old fart. The lawn and garden had definitely seen better days upon first sight over 3 hours ago, and he could only wonder how long it had been since proper maintenance had been performed. Quit complaining. Despite Sakura telling this to her wild teammate, the Pinkette couldn't help but mentally agree. Sasuke for his part said nothing and did nothing but pull out another weed. But the last Uchiha had the same mindset as his teammates. The only one on their team who was having any sort of enjoyment was Kiba's Ninken, and perhaps Kakashi, if the odd giggling he released was an indicator. Off to the side, their Jonin instructor was nose-deep in a book, and while Hata Kakashi had impressed him during their test, the man left much to be desired since then. He was constantly late. No techniques except for the odd survival skills were taught to them, and the majority of the time all they did were drills and mock combat scenarios and sparring. It made Sasuke reevaluate how high Konoha's standards were if this is what passed as a Jonin. At this rate, Sasuke wouldn't be able to avenge his clan anytime soon. Yash! My eternal rival Kakashi. All three genin blinked and turned to see a sight that they'd never forget but sorely liked too. Kakashi did nothing but turn to the next page in his book and greeted his rival with a passive demeanor. "Gay," was Kakashi's simple reply. Kakashi and members of Team 7, "How fare you this afternoon?" asked the energetic man. "We're all seeing this, right?" Kiba couldn't believe his eyes, dearly hoping his mind was playing tricks on him. "God, hope not," Sakura said back, her incredible memory working against her as she memorized every detail of the man and his unbelievable attire. Sasuke agreed. "Fine," responded Kakashi, who continued to read his book. "Where's your team?" "They are preparing for a mission outside Konoha. We leave in an hour, so I thought I'd do a few quick exercises before we left when I spotted you and your youthful students." Kakashi could only imagine what Gay meant when he said, "few and quick exercises," despite the number of years knowing the odd ninja. "No fair. His team goes outside Konoha and we're stuck doing this crap," Kiba complained. Kakashi was undeterred by the hot-headed boy's outburst and began placating him in short order. "Settle down, Kiba. Fresh genin teams don't usually take on C-rank missions in their first few months. Guy's team has been in circulation for over half a year now. They have more experience than any of you three." "Arf? Sorry. 4. The man apologized to the team Ninken. "I guess," the boy groaned, but he didn't like the answer. Blinking in confusion, Guy asked, "You mean you haven't heard?" "Heard? What?" Kiba asked. Anko and her team were tasked with a C-rank mission. 4 days ago, Guy revealed before Kakashi could stop him. "What?" all three genin exclaimed. Sighing, as this was what he was hoping to avoid, Kakashi snapped his book shut, and just when it was getting to the good part. After putting in a bookmark, "I had heard of that, yes. Good for them." "Wait, you knew, and didn't tell us?" Kiba asked once more. "I didn't believe it was important, and it wasn't." How Anko managed her team, and how Azuma and Guy, or any other Jonin instructor managed their team wasn't any of his business. Who went on what mission and what kind of mission it was also wasn't his business. And his team wasn't ready as he'd like them to be for a C-rank mission. "Not important. The dead last managed to go on a C-rank mission before us," Kiba declared. "Last. I remember, Kiba. You were the dead last of your graduating class instead of Naruto," he corrected. Kakashi had initially believed his teacher's son didn't take after either of his parents. Skill-wise, that is, as he was certainly Kushina's son, if his grades and personality were an indicator. But his turnaround during his last year had the makings of a late bloomer finally coming around. Kiba turned red with embarrassment and anger as Sakura stifled a laugh, and Sasuke sported a light smirk. Seeing this only served to anger Kiba up even more. "That's it. I'm over this shit. We're going to the Hawkage Tower to get a C-rank mission right now." Watching him leave, Guy couldn't help but ask, "Doesn't he know you're already done?" And indeed, the garden and lawn were done, and all that remained was collecting payment and putting away the bags of weeds. "It'll only get him even more riled up if we told him," Sakura informed the man. Kiba could get really annoying whenever he wanted to prove himself. Or one up another. "Go after him and wait for me. I'll be there in a sec," Kakashi ordered both remaining genin. Sakura and Sasuke did as they were bid, while their team leader collected the payment for the mission, and then headed off to the Hokage Tower himself. His team might not be ready as he'd like them to be, but perhaps a good kick in the pants by reality would be the necessary push they needed. But first, if it was available, he'd have them chase Tora if the feline blur he just spotted a block over was anything to go by. Days later. Finally, Ino breathed a sigh of relief as she and her team and their guide set their sights upon their destination. The latter half of their trip had not been a pleasant one. Neither Hinata nor Ino were on the same level as Anko and Naruto when it came to endurance, but she'd like to think they did well for their first time. Anko would probably have a different opinion, the Yamanaka thought. Meeting with the guide had been when the fun part had started. Despite it being the winter season, it wasn't uncommon for no Kuni to get rain and warm weather. Apparently, the southern part of no Kuni didn't receive the same memo, and they were heavily cloaked to keep the winter's unforgiving winds at bay. Given their role in the group, Ino and Anko had more exposed skin than either of their teammates and were less than comfortable at the moment. Fortunately, they were but a leisurely 10 minutes away from warming up if they went full tilt. Ino didn't care if she'd have to carry their guide to do so. Yuzukamura was a large hamlet with many different-sized homes and roads situated on hills that had a decent-sized plateau. Each hill had rows of trees, stands and poles with plants attached or growing up along them. Others had edible grasses such as rice growing as far as the eye could see in well-kept paddies. In the distance was the largest elevated plateau with the largest buildings surrounded by a tall wall of wooden pikes exceeding 60-odd feet that were nearly 10 feet thick, and that was only the shorter portions. The defensive bulwark was apparently made by the Shodai in exchange for a trade agreement between the two villages and had since been added upon over time, such as the man-made moat. The protected building in question was likely the storehouse and distillery the group had learned about from their guide. The man was a chatterbox and a wealth of boring and useless information no one cared about. Sure, knowing about the village in question and where and what was what and who might be useful. But about 9 out of 10 of what he droned on about was pointless drivel. That's the village's pride and joy, the Yuzukamura distillery. Fun fact about it, Anko felt her eye twitching, and saw Naruto and Ino were just about ready to pounce on the soon-to-be pancake. Anko had never killed a client before, but she had certainly come close, and had on occasion gotten back at the more annoying ones in a discreet manner that left them oh so satisfyingly humiliated. This guy here was microseconds away from being her latest victim before a group of armed men came up the hill to greet them. "Identify yourselves," a voice suddenly announced and spared them from hearing the useless trivia. "Yuzuka-sama." Hearing the honorific, Team 8 looked at the aforementioned woman that came up to them with a small group of armed individuals. A quick glance at how tense many of them held their weapons, and the way they looked everywhere told Anko that they were either greenhorns or nervous as hell, or likely both. "Teammate from Konoha?" the woman asked. "You expecting anyone else?" was Anko's reply. "You the head honcho of this village." To their surprise, the woman shook her head. "No, that would be my mother. However, she isn't available at the moment, so I'm here in her stead." Lucky them, Team 8 heard one of the guards mutter, "Hold your tongue." Apparently, the comment wasn't low enough, as Yuzuka's bark had the guard become ramrod stiff. The woman earned some points for that stunt alone in Anko's books. "Shall we?" Yuzuka motioned for them to follow her lead. The trip was short, and soon the group enjoyed the comforts of the indoors. A small spread of drinks and food, mostly fruits and vegetables, with some rice dishes, was soon brought for their leisure. "I'll keep this short as I want you to start as soon as possible," Yuzuka began. "We need these bandits dealt with, and dealt with quickly. They have my mother." "How'd that happen?" Anko asked, taking a sip of the alcoholic beverage she was given. "It was pretty good. My mother is a headstrong woman, and quick to anger when wronged, and strict to a fault." Anko decoded the veiled wording for what she actually was. A hard-ass bitch, she takes the welfare of Yuzukamura very seriously. These bandits have been a thorn in our side for months, and my mother finally had enough and left with a group of guards with the most recent caravan to try and ambush them. That was 2 weeks ago, right? It was, Yuzuka nodded. My mother is skilled with a naginata and knows a few basic ninja techniques, but evidently that wasn't enough. A warning flare was seen maybe half an hour after they left, and when we found the caravan it was hopelessly annihilated and bodies littered the grounds, some of them in pieces. The only saving grace is that several of them were missing from the site. Hostages? We hope. The area around there usually doesn't have its share of predators, especially during winter. But it is a swamp, and it's not uncommon for the odd creature to show up where they usually don't. Anko and Ino detected a hint of hope that such an occurrence didn't come to pass. All right, what about the site? What did it look like? Anko asked. Almost like every other, was the unhelpful comment. Broken wagons, cut-up bodies, smashed-in heads, decent-sized crater holes, and broken trees. But no signs of ninja techniques were used. No burn marks, scorch marks, or anything else that would serve as an indicator. That last bit of information had Anko's attention. So, physically strong individuals, the average bandits were usually much stronger than a well-trained civilian, but not as strong as a well-trained ninja. But even then, ordinary ninjas weren't physically strong enough to do what was described. In other words, these were chunin, or near jonin level individuals. We believe so, yes? All we found at the scene was this. The woman brought a box from her side and opened it to reveal a piece of clothing. It belonged to my mother. Grabbing it, Anko and her genin felt their eyes watering as the scent assaulted their senses. Oh boy! Ah! Oh God, close it, Naruto pleaded. I'm sorry. Yuzuka didn't understand their reactions. You can't smell that. Smell? Yuzuka held a look of ignorance. You're pulling our leg, right? Frowning, Yuzuka said, I'm not pulling anything. Yuzuka-sama, the perfume Yuka-sama uses, is a local one. Outsiders such as our guests are likely unaccustomed to such odors, said one of Yuzuka's attendants. No shit! Were the collective thoughts of the group. Well, at least they had a way of finding their target. Now it was merely a matter of convincing Hato to smell it. The Ninken's retreating form told them all they needed to know.